Now, where local sports always come first, this is Action 4 Sports.
Greetings, my friends. Joe Bowling here on Action 4, and welcome to another edition of Joe's Top 10. Look at the top 10 high school football teams here in the Rio Grande Valley. I get to each and every week here. For the first time, we have a new number 1, 2. Stick with me to find out who that team is. Here's a look at my list from last week, where top 5 didn't change from the week before. I added a couple of teams, dropped a few out of the mix, and told you as I went down the lineup there were most definitely opportunities for a change as early as this week. That was the list from last week. Let's see how they stack up here. Number 10 this week is Brownsville Veterans Memorial, a team that was a bit higher on the list last week and a team that was actually idle this week. But I have reasons why they are where they are, which I'll get to a bit later on. This week, they take on Harlingen South, and they play that one Friday night at Bogus Stadium in Harlingen. I think Veterans can win this, but for them to move up on my list of teams that can make a serious postseason run, they need to win this one in convincing fashion. Harlingen South playing with a clean slate on the year. They can make a jump into the playoff contention in the district with a win. Brownsville Veterans Memorial in, though, this week, number 10 on my list. And number 9 this week, once again, Brownsville St. Joseph. I didn't move them up or down, but I can guarantee that they'll move one way or another next week after their game at Port Isabel this week. This past week, they ran it up against Far Oratory, and what I liked about the win more than anything was they mixed it up, which is what I like to see in non-district games. They got in a new personnel, they used the pass and the run, and they stick in the top 10 this week at number 9, Brownsville St. Joseph. Number 8 this week is Rio Hondo's Bobcats. And if ever there has been a team on the verge, it's been this one for the past few weeks. This past week, they handled Hidalgo on the road with ease. They just seem to be getting better and better when I match them up with other teams in their classification. There's a showdown coming, my friends, with their rival Port Isabel. But until that game, I can see this team now in my top 10 each week, heading in to that week. Welcome to the top 10. Rio Hondo, I have you in at number 8. Number 7 on my list this week is Mission Veterans Patriots, a team I think is getting better, a team I think can get a lot better by the end of the year. This past week, they won a shootout with PSJA North. Kind of took me by surprise there. I had them winning that ball game, but it wasn't seeing that it was going to be their defense allowing that many points. They won 47-39. This week, the Patriots have a bye. That means they won't have to worry about winning a game as they look ahead to next week's Sherryland game, and that's a good thing for a couple of reasons. One, they have an extra week to prepare. The other, they can all show up and watch that Sherryland Vela game and get a feel for the environment of the 2 games they have coming up. This week, Mission Veterans in at number 7. Number 6 this week, Edinburgh Vela. My friends, I could easily have moved them up higher after what I've seen these past 2 weeks in person. They won at PSJA Memorial this past week, and they seem to get better, and the most impressive part about this, they were fresher as the game played on. It was a hot and humid night of football, would have taxed a lot of players, but they seem to be in supreme shape as they rolled into the second half as if it were the first half. This week, they get a big test, or at least the first of a couple of big tests, as they take on Sherryland at Sherryland. Now, if you watched our Sunday Sports Extra, then you know I picked them to win this. Do I pick them ahead of Sherryland yet for advancing further in postseason? Answer there, no, not yet. But if they win this week at Sherryland and they beat Mission Veterans later on, they're going to move up the list. This week, Vela, number 6. Weslaco East this week slides to number 5. And before you jump on me for dropping a team that won and remained unbeaten, hear me out. They run the ball as good as or as better as anyone in the valley. But this team has got to be able to open up a passing game that teams can fear. Remember, my poll is on advancing further in postseason. And if at Class 6 you can't pass the ball or at least prove that you need to or have to, then advancing too far out of the playoffs, they're not going to do it, my folks. And this passing game has got to come into reality. But Weslaco East still real solid this week at number 5. Number 4 this week are the Mercedes Tigers, and I'm sure there are those that are shaking and asking, why are you moving them up this week without playing? But if you're really asking that, then go back and review some of the other teams I've already talked about. Tigers have a nice mix of passing and running this week. They get Brownsville Pace, which is a team they had better bring their A game for. Pace is better than what they look like when they're on paper. You look at the records alone, you're going to get beat. But this is a game the Tigers need to win, and they need to put away the Vikings as early as possible. Next week, the Tigers take on Donna North, which is another game they should win. Then things get interesting as they have Donna in Week 7, Ed Couch in Week 8, After that, I'll have a clear view on how I think they fare for a postseason run. Right now, I'm happy to rate them at number 4 on my list. Number 3 this week has been on my number 1 from the word go. That's the Sharyland Rattlers. I was back and forth on where I would drop them this week after that loss to Laredo Alexander this week, but I think the 3 spot is fair. The Rattlers have a home game this week with Edinburgh Vela, which I went out on a limb in our Sunday show and picked them to lose. The reason I think they're set up to lose this was this week Vela is playing at an extreme level these days, and Sharyland is turning the ball over just a bit more than I think they'll accept. Do I think they can fix that? Yes, I do. Do I think they can still advance further than most teams in the Valley, including Vela? Yes. They could still be number 1, my friends, but right now Mission Sharyland is in at number 3. Number 2 this week is McCallum Memorial, a team that has moved all over my top 10 already this season. I think now that may be up near the top for the rest of the year. Mustangs have got to stay healthy up front, and the Mustangs have to keep pushing their defense to reach a new level. Their offense can and will always keep scoring points. But this week they're at La Jolla, and even that game is no gimme. Just ask Wesco East if you think it's easy to go there and win. What I need to see from McCallum Memorial, though, is a stingy defense and not a team that relies on just outscoring everyone they play. They're getting there. McCallum Memorial's Mustang this week in for me at number 2. Now, for number 1 on my book, it's Port Isabel, and I still shake my head at times to make sure that I'm seeing them the way that I am right now, but I do. I admit, I didn't see it unbeaten at this point on the season. I have to admit as well, I expected that there would be some sort of letdown from a team with such limited experience on both sides of the line of scrimmage. But they are real, my friends, when you look at this team that can make a serious noise in postseason play. This week, they'll get a test at home against St. Joseph that can present a great challenge. This week, they handled the road trip to Valley View. No, they don't have to pass the ball much, so you Wesco East fans, there you go, jump on that one on me and let me know all about that. But hey, at this class level, they've already proven in years past hard-nosed defense, great running game, and you can advance in the postseason. Therefore, number 1 this week on my list, Port Isabel Tarpons. Couple of teams just outside my top 10 this week include McAllen, Los Fresnos, and Donna. These teams have their own storylines that can get them in my top 10, but they also have a lot of question marks still that keeps them out. Right now, I have them out. My best teams that I'm watching that could make a playoff run despite being under 500 this season, thus far still Brownsville Rivera at 0-3, Harlingen at 1-2. Now, one of those will move up as a step off as a square-off game this week against each other at Sam Stadium in Brownsville. The winner of this can use this type of game to vault forward into a playoff contender, which I still think they both can be. So there you have it, my friends. One more look at this week's top 10 here for this week, according to how I see it anyway. Remember, I still rank these teams as to who I think can make the best postseason run in the Valley. It's not always about the head-to-head matchups. The new number 1 this week, Port Isabel. Sharyland falls out for the first time on the season. Will they stay there? Well, we'll have to follow that. Follow my travels on social media as I move about covering these teams, and then send me your list if you have one out there on what you think your top 10 list is according to your point of view. Follow me at JoeKGBT. Till next week for another look at the top 10 teams in high school football here in the Rio Grande Valley, Joe Bowling for Action 4 Sports. Enjoy the games.